We'll keep letting folks trickle in, but we can get started. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sarah Wooten, and I'm a community researcher at the Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG. And PPG is a community-based think tank with over 300 partner groups. Those groups range from small block clubs to large nonprofits to some for-profit groups. We appreciate all sorts of partners. And our mission is to provide research and policy advocacy assistance to those partners to accomplish policy change at both the local and state level. And today we're happy to welcome you to an informational session about the City of Buffalo's new proactive rental inspections program. And we'll be talking about what led to this program, how it works, and what tenants need to know about the process. Before we dive in, just want to share a couple of housekeeping items. First, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself in the chat. It's great to have a sense of who all is here. And also just want to let people know that this meeting is being recorded for people who aren't able to make it, but who still want the information. So just be aware of that. And we have a great group of speakers joining us today. Talk about this new program. So introduce those speakers. So first we have our Niagara District Council member, David Rivera here. Andrea O'Sullivan, who's the Executive Director of PPG. We have Michael Ramos, who is the Lead Hazard Control Outreach and Education Specialist at the City of Buffalo. And we have Anna Falikov, who is Assistant Counsel in the city's Law Department. We also have a few folks here from the city who will be helping to answer questions. Hunter Spitzer, who is AmeriCorps Vista, the City of Buffalo Department of Permits and Inspections, Tom Broadburr, who is the Assistant Director of that same department, and Eric Michaels, who is also Assistant Corporation Counsel in the Law Department. As far as our agenda today, we're going to start with a piece on, how did we get here? Why did this program come to be? Councilman Rivera will talk about what he was hearing from his constituents that led him to take the lead on this program. And we'll also hear from Andrea about PPG's involvement in this and why, from our perspective, we're really glad that this is happening. Then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the program. We'll be talking about how the program works, what the process is, what tenants need to know, and what's going to be happening after that initial inspection. And then Anna will be speaking about resources that are available to tenants, not necessarily associated with the program, but while we have folks who are working with tenants and tenants here, want to make sure that those resources are mentioned. And then we'll have a section for questions and discussion. We're going to have this section at the end, but we also ask that people put their questions in the chat as folks are presenting. We may be able to get some of those answered throughout the presentation. And it's just a great place to kind of house them while we're waiting for that section. So with that, I think that is my little intro, and I will hand it off to Councilman Rivera to start us out.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and for all the great work you do in PPG and all of the organizations that work collaboratively with you. I sponsored the proactive rental inspections November of 2020. Our office worked closely with department heads and our law department to draft the amendments. And I want to give a special mention to Eric Michaels and of course, our chief of staff, Valerie Malia, my staff, along with the department heads, and of course, our law department that helped us draft the amendment. But I just want to recognize the work that they did and their advocacy and how this came to be. We regularly receive calls from constituents and residents regarding properties. I think next to broken sidewalks and overlay, probably the biggest complaint we received are conditions of the house. We have an old housing stock. A lot of properties have been neglected. And we've seen that throughout the city of Buffalo. And we get all kinds of calls from porches that are falling down to steps to rails. And of course, chip paints. And we all know that the hazard, the lead hazard that are in the homes and the impact, the effect that it has on young children. So that, along with other housing conditions, adversely affect the quality of life of people, the health, and the general welfare of persons occupying those dwellings. But this legislation affects non-owner occupied singles and doubles. Landlords must submit applications every 3 years. Inspections will be made, visual inspections will be made. And if there are any violations, they will be given an opportunity to work those out. Our goal is to help people. If there's an assistance program that we can utilize through the city or any other organization that is out there, that is our goal. Our goal is to remedy the problem, to make sure that the public's health and safety and welfare are taken care of. If there are any issues regarding the certification issues, a certificate of occupancy will not be issued. If there are violations, permits and inspections will work with the landlords to bring properties into compliance. This is going to be phased in over 6 years, especially with high-risk neighborhood and residents. As I said before, this is not to be punitive. We want to make sure that if we can help people and there are people that just can't afford it. There are seniors that have housing conditions and they just can't maintain them because they don't have the wherewithal. Our goal is to help people with regards to, programs to make sure that there are no leads in the house. I think that's very important. And I just want to give a special mention to Eric because he worked on the lead part of it and he has been an advocate for that. And as a result, I think we're doing more with regards to lead. Along with the city, let me just mention OSP and all the departments and law department. There are just so many. I sponsored it, but the draft and the way it's written up, I certainly couldn't have done it without Anna Felikoff and the law department. My staff did a great job on this. So I think it's good legislation. It's legislation that other folks would look at and say, hey, let's model ourselves after what Buffalo's doing. And that is our goal. Our goal is to put together legislation that is good legislation. And certain PPG has advocated for many of these things that we're implementing. A lot of the good ideas, I say, come from outside City Hall. As a matter of fact, most of the good ideas come from outside City Hall. They don't emanate from, the 13th, 14th, or even the second floor of City Hall. They come from the community, and we're listening to you. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Councilman. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your experience with this institution of this program. Sorry for the construction going outside my window here. Next, we'll have Andrea Sullivan from PPG talking about kind of community involvement in this and how we, PPG's involvement in this program.
Thanks so much. And I'll keep it brief. I think Council Member Rivera really captured already how this is a collective effort and one that certainly goes back a few years. Back in 2017, the city, the Community Foundation, and other partners released the Renewing Our Pledge report, which was really a pathway to end lead poisoning of Buffalo's children. And in that report, there were some major findings. Erie County has one of the highest blood level testing rates in New York State. At that time, the finding was 61% of children were testing positive for lead in the first few years of life. Lead exposure rates at that time, interestingly, had plateaued. So even though there was all of this investment and effort to really reduce this problem, we had seen a decline and then it stopped decreasing. The rate was no longer decreasing. The majority of children, of course, with elevated blood lead levels live in the city of Buffalo. That was another finding. And importantly, live in singles and doubles. And that report really emphasized in those singles and doubles where lead exposure was found, those properties were owned by 1,200 different property owners. And so I think part of this process has been breaking down an assumption that this is about big landlords, out-of-town landlords that are not necessarily here to keep up their properties. It's really about all different types of property owners, including, again, as the council member said, senior citizens who own a building that maybe they inherited from their family, mom and pop landlords, owners that are going to need engagement and support to make these repairs. And Finally, then another finding was 80% of the properties where children have harmful lead exposure are rentals. So that report really turned the attention and the spotlight onto singles and doubles that were being rented. And of course, as a result, one of the top recommendations was require owners of all rental housing to pass an interior inspection for deteriorated chipping, peeling paint every 3 years after this initial phase in. And so we're really grateful that a few years later, here we are with this program rolling out, proceeding on from that report and that recommendation. In the meantime, Partnership for the Public Good, we came together with a group of several partners, including Connect and the Community Health Worker Network, Heart of the City Neighborhoods, Ujima Theater Company, Buffalo Prenatal Perinatal, Push Buffalo, and others. And we began this Healthy Homes Coalition work together with the city, the county, and the community foundation's Lead Safe Task Force. And back in 2018, following that big report, we really wanted to get more of a community-based understanding of why weren't lead rates changing. So we went out as a group and interviewed landlords, we interviewed tenants experiencing issues, teachers who had students affected by lead poisoning. We interviewed folks who train contractors to do lead remediation and really tried to get this 360-degree view of what are the continuous barriers. And in the meantime, we've done things like circulate new materials of 4 steps to a healthy home that tenants themselves can take, even when we do live in old housing stock where there's continuous lead. A lot of bringing this information to parent groups. Ujima Theater even put together an 8-minute play called Legacy of Lead on how does this issue affect a single mom in the city of Buffalo, a day in her life dealing with this. And so that went out to a lot of parent and school groups to get the word out about all this as well. But that whole time while we took those interim steps, we really wanted to see this recommendation move forward. And you've heard how that happened from Councilman Rivera, so I don't need to recap, but just to mention as well, of course, for many years, this approach has been taken in Rochester. Syracuse enacted similar legislation in 2018. And so we are also grateful to the city law department and others who really researched how this happens in other cities and how best to make it work here. And then, of course, to Councilmember Rivera and Councilmember Nowakowski, who really championed passing these ordinance amendments and making this program possible in Buffalo. We shared on a workshop this Tuesday resources for landlords. Another interesting goal of this program, as I hinted at, is to say we don't want landlords just out there having to figure out how to make this work and make these repairs themselves. So really connecting them to new resources, to low interest loans to make these repairs possible. So I will leave it there and turn it back, and we're eager to hear more about what tenants need to know today.
Thanks, Andrea. So next we have Michael Ramos from the City of Buffalo Inspections Department talking about the program itself, how it all works. And I think Michael's going to share his screen so we can.
Yep, I'm gonna share my screen right now. All right, let me know if you can all see it. Yeah, good. Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. We are making a presentation on the proactive rental inspection program, specifically geared towards tenants, but there will be crossover information from the last presentation that was geared towards landlords. So a little bit of background on how this program came to be. Oh, let me move this, excuse me. Sorry, there we go. Okay. Background, most cities or counties maintain code enforcement programs to ensure the safety and welfare of their residents. Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, and a variety of other cities perform building code enforcements. Traditionally, these programs have been complaint-based, just like the cities have, in response to a resident's complaint about a substandard housing condition or issues within the neighborhood. But complaints can be biased for a fear of retaliation. Currently, the rental registry, the registry of non-owner occupied 1 and 2 family residential properties since 2005, Chapter 264 of the City Code. The majority of the city's rental units are listed within the rental registry, generally in the worst conditions. As of November 2020, Common Council unanimously passed an amendment to Chapter 264, requiring that inspections of all rental registry properties in the city. Goals of the PRI: protect neighborhood character and stability, protect public health, prevent childhood lead poisoning specifically, improve housing condition by enforcing minimal housing standards with applicable New York State building codes, take actions against negligent owners, that be in the city, out of state, or anywhere else or out of country. Rental housing included, again, 1 and 2 family homes that are non-owner occupied. Homes that should be on, these homes should be on the rental registry list. There's always a margin of error, but we tend to update those files every year. This program is started in areas with a historically childhood lead poisoning, and that currently is the Upper West Side neighborhoods, which we have tackled in the last month of September and this month as well. Next, we're looking to start our phase 2 into Schiller Park and eventually the entire city. Yes. How does this program work? How does it start? So there's 3 notification systems that go out, and that is, the first one is a letter is sent out to landlords informing them that they must schedule the PRI inspection within 10 days with all the relevant information. The options they have to schedule these PRI inspections are fairly very accessible. One, we strongly recommend through our online city bookings portal. You can choose time, date, and the specific inspector that you would like to conduct the PRI inspection. You can also call the 301 hotline or my number directly listed there below. The second notification we send out is to the property, and that is meaning to the tenants. So we sent out letters to the tenants informing them of what the program is, that their landlord has been informed through the mail out, and it has additional information regarding housing resources. Another thing I did not mention that's in the landlord tenant is that it has options for financial assistance if they are in need of doing these repairs before they schedule a PRI inspection. It's also listed on our website as well. And the third notification would be block walk. It's the city and its partners canvassing the neighborhoods that have received the landlord and tenant letters. And it's basically a follow-up on properties where owners failed to respond to our letters. The block walks, we successfully managed to conduct our block walk on September 18th. In the 2 letters we sent out, we did inform landlords and tenants that we would be coming out that day. Those are basically a one-on-one approach for residents in the priority neighborhoods to meet the inspectors on their porch. We usually do the door knockers. We have bags with information regarding get ahead of lead and other community support systems. It allows occupants to schedule an inspection as well for future dates. We do have a QR code where they just place the camera over their phone, over the QR code, and the bookings page pops up right away. We can do it with them, or they can do it by themselves. We do provide that option as in a pamphlet. We typically conduct interior inspections that day, depending on the interest and availability. Some tenants will like, we experience, they like to have those inspections done right away, and others do schedule for further down the line. It connects residents with community partners, health services, housing services, like rent relief, and community health workers and other legal services that they may need, or we can refer them over. Meeting a building inspector. All live and most grew up in the city of Buffalo. They are not mandatory reporters to any other agency, and they are partnered with community health workers at your request. It's a system that we have recently implemented, and it's worked pretty well. They also carry language ID cards. Currently this is on the field where they would be carrying this pamphlet with them, where if there's a language access issue at the time beforehand, if it was not mentioned during the booking, we would pull this out and just call the number and use this as a means of communication for individuals that are having difficulties communicating in English. How to prepare for an inspection. Someone 18 years or older must be present for the entire time with the inspector. No one present can have COVID. Face masks will be worn for the entire inspection. The inspector needs to be able to access all areas of the property for a complete inspection to be conducted. This means that doors, passages, and mechanicals such as fuse boxes and sink and plumbing cannot be blocked from entering or viewing. Typically, this is what a building inspector is looking at when they are conducting a building inspection. This information, this brochure, this checklist is sent out to the landlord as well, and the tenant letters, I believe too. But we also have this on our website if there's any questions regarding it or an extra copy. Tenant responsibilities, their items and valuables. No upholstered furniture outside their home, on their porch, or in the front yards. No more than one unlicensed vehicle. No parking on unpaved surfaces, which we see a lot. No accumulation of trash, garbage cans dramatically overflowing, many bags of trash inside. No litter in their yards, and preserving functionality. Smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors must not be removed or disabled. When we usually see this, an inspector would ask a tenant to place them back up if they're the ones that took it down, and it just avoids paperwork at that point. Do not dump grease in drains or anything besides toilet paper and toilets. What happens if the property fails the first inspection? An order to remedy listing the violations found is sent out to the landlord, to the property on the rental registry, or the landlord if they request a different address at the time. If a tenant has any issues or questions regarding what violations were found, they can always contact their assigned building inspector, and the building inspector can make that available to them as well by request. Second inspection, 30 days after the first inspection. There's a show of progress, handled the needed repairs. A third inspection, 30 days after the second inspection, if a third inspection is required. The inspection is that the expectation is that after this inspection, the property will be substantially compliant. Further time may be granted for reasonable delays. And what happens when the property passes? It will be issued a certificate for rental compliance, valid for 3 years. Certifies the property was in substantial compliance with building code at the date issued. Staying up to date on the process. What happens if your landlord is harassing you or harassing me? Inform your assigned building inspector. We do instruct our building inspectors to be very transparent with the process of how things work in the department and how things move along. They do carry business cards, so you can request one on demand. You can also request a referral to the fair housing officer with the city of Buffalo. What happens if they try to raise your rent during this? Landlord, as a means of retaliation, rent cannot be raised as retaliation while being under the existing lease. A case would be referred over to fair housing officer right away, and our newly formed Bureau of Administration and Adjudication for additional support. The benefits of the new approach: addressing low quality housing. Ensuring housing does not make tenants sick physically or mentally. Ensuring that housing does not pose a risk to safety. Ensuring that housing provides the basic needs of water, heat, electricity, light, and ventilation. Notice of non-compliance. Consequences for landlords who fail to provide tenants with repair. If posted, the tenant cannot be evicted for non-payment of rent. Caveat: tenant can be evicted for holdover lease. But also at this point, the landlord would also be referred to our Bureau of Administration and Adjudication. So some of the housing resources that we have available for tenants. And we're going to have Anna Falcoff from the City of Buffalo Law Department speak a little bit on the emergency rental assistance.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, this is a very stressful and unusual time in our world history where we have a lot of impact related to COVID. The state and federal government have stepped up to support both landlords and tenants who have suffered from non-payment of rent during this period. So the City of Buffalo has partnered with the state to promote the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I won't go into the details, but for those individuals who have fallen behind on their rent because of a financial impact related to COVID, you can learn more and apply for these dollars by visiting standupbuffalo.com or calling 211. If you call 211, the tenant or the landlord will be connected to a nonprofit agency that's contracted with the city of Buffalo to assist with the application process. There's up to 12 months of arrears available and 3 months prospective rent. There's also assistance available for utilities. And I'm happy to answer any questions about ERAP that you might have. Either you can place them in the chat, or as I think Sarah said, since we're a small group, feel free to just unmute. I also wanted, well, I'll stop there, right? Mike, go ahead. Oh, HEAP. Okay, that's also me. So HEAP, again, there's assistance available for utilities. There's actually a supplemental HEAP available for arrears. That's one-time only payment, called the RAS program. You can apply online, you can go in person, you can call 211. Next slide. So the city, as mentioned by Mike, has a fair housing officer. We're very attentive to the problems and concerns that have been raised by our residents about housing discrimination. It is illegal to discriminate against tenants who pay with government subsidies, such as Section 8. It's also illegal to discriminate based on race, familial status, gender identity, ethnic origin, etc. So if anyone believes that they have encountered discrimination, we encourage you to call 311 and talk to our fair housing officer. We also have a partnership with Housing Opportunities Made Equal. It's 854-1400. They can also support you through a fair housing discrimination claim. And as mentioned by Mike earlier, certainly a concern we have is retaliation related to facilitating the inspections program. That is unlawful under fair housing laws and under local laws. Again, we encourage you to call 311 or communicate with your building inspector about any retaliatory action that you might be facing. I think that's it.
Thanks, Anna. All right. So that was quite a bit of information that we had shared with us here. I think at this point, we'll stop for a second and see if people have questions, comments, if there's any section that you felt like, you just need more information on, because again, there was a lot of information all at once. So yeah, please feel free to unmute and ask a question, or if you'd like to put information in the chat or a question, comment, information in the chat, that's welcome as well.
I'll just comment that Keith in the chat suggested that we work with Pura and lead funding that Belmont administers. And I wanted to say that, yes, that's a big part of our program. And in fact, why the city has started proactive rental inspections on the Upper West Side and Schiller Park neighborhoods, because that is where we can spend our federal lead grant that we received this year. We are also promoting the county's lead grant, which is available to any resident in the city of Buffalo outside those two neighborhoods. So thanks for the comment, Keith. And we certainly are looking to be restorative in our practices and connect people to resources as much as possible.
Can you show the last slide again? I think it was up for about 2 seconds. The repair and weatherization numbers to call and whatnot. Thank you.
And we will share the slides and share the recording too with everybody who registered for the workshop. But I think Mike has it up again.
Yep. So this information geared more towards landlords, but you're free to share this to your landlord as well. That'll be great. Because at the end of the day, some of these programs of the lead hazard reduction grant does require the communication between the landlord and tenants. It's an application that involves both parties, and it's it's a grant that is meant to help both parties as well.
Any other questions, comments, pieces you want more information on?
I can say one piece we had some questions on after Tuesday's workshop, and thinking today that we have many of our kind of housing support partners on is, I don't know, Mike, other folks from the city, if you can talk us through again, the inspection happens. What are those next steps? And from the tenant's perspective, how can they follow kind of where it is in the process, maybe especially if there's some delays happening in getting those repairs done?
Sure thing. So the inspection happens. We do our best to communicate with both parties, but we highly recommend that the tenant stays in communication with the inspector of when the updates are being done, or if they are even done at all, or if they're even been done properly, because we want to know when the work is being done and if the work is being done correctly by a licensed contractor in the city. We don't want the situation to get out of hand. We want to make sure both parties are in agreement of what is happening and when it's happening, and that's part of the work we want to accomplish here. But after it occurs, we expect the minimal housing standards to be addressed as per the violations that were found, and in a timely manner. So we first we provide 30 days, but if the landlord finds himself money strapped for money and they want to apply to a grant, we would also refer them over to the proper parties to do so. We do have 5, let me pull that up right now. We do have 5 agencies that currently handle the Stand Up Buffalo grant, and they, where is it? They provide the additional support when it comes to getting individuals the proper help they need. So right now it is right here, rental and owner housing rehab, Matt Urban Center, and they all have specific regions in the city. But it doesn't matter where in the city you live, you can always contact either of the 5, which is Matt Urban, Heart of the City Neighborhoods, Belmont Housing, this is University District, and the Old First Ward. These numbers right here. But that is in the case that a landlord is in need of financial assistance to make those repairs. And then we would conscientiously work with the landlord on developing a working plan and an expectation of when those repairs could be done. But we would encourage the repairs that are cause the most harm and health to be addressed as soon as possible.
Mr. Ramos, this is probably more of a landlord question, but I can just say that I have had a lot of trouble getting contractors to come and even give estimates. Most of them say that they are booked 9 months in advance or more, because we really have a shortage of qualified contractors, I think, in the city of Buffalo. So how does that contractor shortage or the whole thing, like, well, I can put you on my list for next year, how does that all kind of fit into this 30-day time frame?
So it really depends on the pool you're looking at. If you look through our city website, we do have the entire list of available licensed contractors. It's about over 1,000. So I would definitely look into that and just expand your pool of resources when it comes to reaching out for quotes or for work that you're trying to get done.
Yeah, where's the list of 1,000 contractors?
I believe it's over 1,000. I want to backtrack on that, but I do know it's a substantial number. It's on our city website. If you go on our permits and inspections website, you could find it. But I can post it here as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I'll comment, Elizabeth, this is not an uncommon concern, and I agree that we have a shortage, and it's something that we're addressing in various ways. One is certainly if you are in communication with your building inspector and, making good faith efforts to find contractors, that's going to be taken into account. And we'll try to support you to find a contractor who does have availability. We also have a new agreement with a third party to help the city recruit and retain new contractors, specifically around lead remediation, but really to cover all of our rehab programs, a new revolving loan fund that we've recently launched. So, and I can see here that Keith said Belmont also recently contracted with a firm. So we're all trying to tackle this problem. We've been putting incentives on the table, like we'll pay your liability insurance, we'll pay for your training. We're going to try to analyze what are the barriers to entry in the market for smaller firms. So we're aware of the problem and trying to make progress on it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just wanted to make the comment too that I've been a landlord for 35 years, and there was a time when you'd see ads in the back of the Buffalo Rocket. You could call people and have somebody right out there. And nowadays, even contractors that I could count on to come out and fix something small all the time, they want to do things like maybe replace a porch, put an addition on. So it's really a struggle to get somebody to replace a storm door, for example. It's peanuts for them and they're not interested,
Yep. No, I hear you. And I think, we need to have like a broader range of contractors, like we have a handyman's license, right? And that is a profession that could support a lot of these minor repairs. We have a property manager's license that, where people can make repairs, but we need to develop that market more so that we're not encountering the problem that you're describing. It's a barrier to healthy housing for sure. As I see.
I saw Director Mestry had his hand raised in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all. This is a great workshop. I also just want to echo, at the end of the day, there's a responsibility that the landlord has, right? And I know we are trying to make it as feasible, with that too, but there's an expectation that we see from the city that the landlord has in terms of the relationship that they have with the tenant. And so part of what we do, and I think organizations such as yours have done landlord tenant trainings, or what it is to be a landlord and the responsibility that is. I think a lot of people think it is an easy thing, or it is this thing that, I'm going to do it and I'm going to get some money, but there's a sacred relationship that I know as an administrator, I know Anna and Michael, we expect to see this all the time. And so a lot of this here is communicating with folks, letting them know what they get into, right? Because on the front end, it may look easy and it may look like, oh, we're going to do this, but on the back end, because of the shortage and because of the other different things, there are challenges too. So just want to underscore in terms of the relationship that the landlord or the person who owns the property that they have in maintaining that as well. Thank you.
Just wanted to mention, I know that in many of these conversations we've talked about, trying to protect those mom and pop landlords that we do rely on in the city. We don't want people to have to sell their properties because they can't find contractors to do these things, or things become too tenuous for them, and those properties end up getting sold out to people who aren't going to take care of them and who live far away, that kind of thing. So we appreciate you, Betsy, and all the other small landlords who are making this work. Any other questions, comments, any more feedback on this?
So we will make this information available to everybody, and we'll also share the flyers that were on this presentation as well. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to call me or the department as well. As you can see, my direct number is on here for individuals that would like to book a PRI, but also seeking more information or additional support.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll be sending out the recording of this as well. So if folks want to share it with others who may be impacted by this, or who just want the information, feel free to pass that along once we send it out. Otherwise, if there aren't any, last comments, questions, anything like that, then I think we'll end it here. And thank you so much to all of the presenters and other folks from the city who are on to answer questions and really give us clarity around this new program. Really appreciate it, and hope to help getting the word out more. Thanks, everybody.